Back in June 2025, the Xbox Games Showcase hit us with perhaps the biggest surprise of the year, at least for Pokémon fans. Game Freak, the developers of Pokémon, were making an entirely different game, not just for Xbox, but also PC and PlayStation 5, but not Nintendo Switch. And when we actually got a look at this game, you could probably see why. Beast of Reincarnation was a big surprise for Pokémon fans, not only in how different it is gameplay-wise, but mainly the graphics on display were unlike anything we'd ever seen from Game Freak before, leading many to wonder if they really were being held back by their flagship franchise. Now, beyond the aesthetic, we didn't really get to learn what Beast of Reincarnation is about. But today, January 22nd of 2026, we have the official gameplay reveal. And this comes from Xbox's Developer Direct. They're celebrating 25 years of Xbox. Not gonna lie, I didn't know Xbox was still around other than the Game Pass, but congratulations Xbox, you're still afloat out here in the crazy world of video game consoles. So let's take a look at the gameplay overview for Beast of Reincarnation. And I'll give some of my thoughts on it, as well as explain exactly how it works with Pokémon Company, Game Freak, and all that afterwards. Is that Omori? Omori is behind this game? That's crazy. If you don't know, Omori has been the main director behind the last 10 Pokemon games. So to know he's involved in Beast of Reincarnation 2, damn, I guess I shouldn't say they're working because he's kind of in charge, right? So Omori is making himself work overtime. It feels like he's in charge of the whole company at this point.
ここは東京にあるゲームフリークのオフィスです。ビースト・オブ・リンカネーションはかつてない新しい体験を作り出すことに主眼を置いたゲームフリーク独自の取り組み、ギアプロジェクトから生まれた新しい挑戦です。
There's something weird about seeing the Game Freak logo and knowing this is not going to be Pokemon, even though they have done non-Pokemon games in the past. I remember Tembo the Badass Elephant. That's one of the weirdest. Little Town Hero? Anyone remember that? Can't say they didn't at least try to make a non-Pokemon RPG, but really everything they've tried outside of Pokemon hasn't really stuck.
これまでもポケットモンスターシリーズのほか、ソリティバ、ギガレッカーなどさまざまなオリジナルゲームタイトルを世に送り出し、常に新しいアイデアや世界観の構築に挑戦しています。
I've heard of Gear Project before because that's where a lot of the other games I just mentioned come from. I think it's like a subdivision within Game Freak. They have little studios, but still Game Freak technically employees. IGN actually did an interview with Beast of Reincarnation's director, answering all our burning questions. Beast of Reincarnation seems very different from anything Game Freak has done before. How did this come to be? Internally here, we have a program called Gear Project, which is sort of an internal contest run by our president, Satoshi Tajiri, to make original IP. I never would have expected Satoshi Tajiri himself, the man that Ash is named after, is the one that decides which Gear projects get greenlit. Furushima here says the team is quite large for Beast of Reincarnation, but I will note that it's not all folks internally here at Game Freak. We managed to seek out a lot of partner companies to work with us, companies, studios that are able to realize the vision. That makes a lot of sense. And I still wonder to this day why they don't outsource more for Pokemon itself, especially when it comes to graphics, because, man, no doubt getting a company like Bandai Namco who made new Pokemon Snap, they're beautiful environments in that game that could definitely be in a main series title. I know it's a completely different type of game, and Game Freak are pretty good at the graphics when it comes to the Pokemons themselves, but they could definitely use some help when it comes to environments.
Beast of Reincarnation はまさに新しい体験ができるゲームです。遠い未来、文明崩壊後の汚れに侵食された日本、そして一人と一匹のアクション RPG というゲームプレイで構築されています。この美しくも過酷なビースト・オブ・リンカネーションの世界で皆さんにも臨場感あふれる冒険を味わっていただくことができればと心から願っています。
It looks nice, you can't lie. The graphics are pretty nice. One of the big topics ever since this dropped, and even the original trailer, if Game Freak can make games that look like this, why does Pokemon look like that? And first of all, it's just completely different art style. Graphics and art style, not the same thing at all, but still, I think we can all agree that Pokemon games could definitely look better within their art style. Instead, we're outsourcing Ilka to do Champions, I guess.
長年ゲームフリークではポケットモンスターシリーズを通じて生き物やパートナーを描いてまいりました。しかし今回のプロジェクトでは過酷な世界を相棒と共に旅をするという体験を目指しています。
I guess I shouldn't be surprised at how much they're mentioning Pokemon since that's the only thing they've been doing for so many years, but it's just crazy to think this is the same people. Well, technically I should mention, at the end of that segment that talks about the development team, it says Game Freak themselves are actually a relatively small team, focused on leading and managing the project. So it seems most of the development is being handled by that outsourced company or developers. I also did a little bit of digging into the funding of this game, and maybe I'm a little bit off on this, but as far as I understand, the publisher Fictions Inc. would be the ones handling the money here. We don't know what the exact budget for Beasts of Reincarnation is, but considering the scope, you gotta assume they're giving them a lot more than what Pokemon Company usually gives for their games. And just to clarify, because honestly it is kind of confusing, but even though Nintendo publishes Pokemon games, I think Pokemon Company's in charge of the money overall. With this game, there's no Nintendo or Pokemon Company involved at all.
ストーリーの舞台は西暦4026年の日本です。はるか昔に発生した汚れという名の寄生植物の影響で人類の大半が消滅した後の世界です。
I do really like the setting too. I mean, I hate to compare too much to other games, but it's definitely giving a little Horizon Zero Dawn or Forbidden West vibe, at least with the post-apocalyptic robots running around. But gameplay-wise, it feels more like a Sekiro, or just Souls-like action RPG. Okay, the combat looks pretty sick. Bro, come on, that was awesome. If this actually ends up being a Souls-like made by Game Freak, like, I'm already in. But the interview I mentioned from IGN where they're talking to the director does mention there's different difficulties and clarifies a little bit more that it might not exactly be Souls-like. One of the biggest questions actually gets answered here. Is Beast of Reincarnation linear, story focus? Is it open world Metroidvania? And Furushima says that it is actually not open world, at least in the purest sense. The game is comprised of different stages, but these stages I would not describe as linear either. There's quite a lot of room for exploration, a lot of radiation between the different environments and nature. And then IGN asks what you do in the different stages, primarily fighting creatures, exploration, puzzles. Battle is a huge part of the game as well as exploration. There's definitely parts where you want to see what's off the beaten path. As long as it's not just a hallway with scenery to look at, but you're just going in a straight line, fighting enemy after enemy, that can get repetitive and kind of boring in certain Souls-likes, in any game, really. Furushima then confirms there are 3 difficulty settings in the game, as many people, or they want as many people to play it as possible, so there's going to be a story mode, normal mode, and of course, a hard mode. It is of course an action RPG. Players have the freedom to think their own strategies.
エマとクーは同じく汚れの力を宿していて、互いにその力を影響させ合いながら戦います。例えば、エマが敵の動きを見極め、攻撃を受け流すと、クーに力が溜まり、開花技という強力な効果を持った技を発動できます。
Okay, that's pretty interesting because it's a mainly action RPG, like real time, but I guess there's also some turn-based elements. At least you can pause time to choose special moves, and they have quick time commands, which I know Expedition 33 is not the first game to do that, but it's like the latest one. So it's the one most people will immediately think of. Game Freak have obviously been known for turn-based RPGs, so incorporating at least some elements into this game feels very right. Also makes this game unique from other Souls-like or just action RPGs in general, because there's a lot of action RPGs these days. Of course there's gotta be a skill tree. By combining various skills, you create your own playstyle.
遠距離だけで戦う人もいれば、ステルスだけで戦う人もいますし、常にエマで戦闘を仕掛ける人もいれば、クーを先行させて戦わせる人もいます。エマとクーでどのような装備でどのような霊石と組み合わせて戦うのか。
Ooh, that's a cool weapon. What? Why did the bird explode into blubber though?
企画構想から6年間、私たちはこの世界に数えきれない秘密や奥深い魅力を散りばめることに全力を注いできました。
6 years of development? I mean, I can definitely see the work they've put in graphically, but games at the end of the day are about the gameplay. So far, it does look pretty interesting. Yeah, this definitely looks like the type of game I would enjoy, being a big fan of Souls-likes, just action RPGs in general, and it is coming out summer 2026. This is a crazy year for Game Freak. 30th anniversary of Pokemon. They're dropping Pokopia in March, and now this in summer, and of course, Gen 10 likely later at the end of the year. They have been freaking busy, man. But I'm sure the top thing on a lot of Pokemon fans' minds might be how this could affect development of Gen 10 or other potential future Pokemon games. Like I mentioned, Game Freak has actually been doing this for a while. They split up their own workforce within Game Freak into different studios handling different games. But Gear Project specifically, I don't think I've ever worked on a game on this scale. So seeing that they dedicated 6 years to it does make sense. They've been cooking behind the scenes and it looks pretty good so far. Oh my god, they actually asked. Game Freak has received some criticism in the past few years for performance and looks of its open world games. What would you say to those who are concerned it might struggle in the same ways? When we approach game design, we're not looking to make a title of a certain level of quality. What? We're looking to deliver a very specific game experience. Part of that, of course, is making sure it performs well, but our attention is more on getting the experience and making sure our vision... I don't know. I mean, it kind of comes off as if they're saying they prioritize just the gameplay over even performance. I feel like those kind of go hand in hand. Like, yes, I totally agree. The game being fun should be the main thing. But even if the game is fun, if it doesn't run properly, it doesn't exactly give me the most confidence that this game will run super smooth. And finally, you guys have a really long history with Nintendo. Is there any chance we'll see this game on Nintendo Switch eventually? Nope, nothing to announce right now. Not confirmed. That is really interesting to me. Oh wait, actually there's one more question. Can you pet the dog? Yes. Well, that settles it for me. Beast of Reincarnation, I'm buying it day one. I like the concept, post-apocalyptic Japan with robots and plant monsters and golems. Definitely elements we've seen in other games before, but all combined into one, maybe not in this way. It looks like they really did their research into what's popular in current games and try to combine aspects from many different genres and styles, which is kind of what Expedition 33 did, and they ended up getting Game of the Year. So, haha, not saying the same's coming for Beast of Reincarnation. It's definitely a little early to say that. We might just have to play it first, but to see Game Freak making a game that actually looks like it belongs in 2026 is wild. There has been so much news, and I guess I've been covering the leaks also late recently, which is why it feels like there's been more news for me specifically. So if you missed any of my previous videos, check out the playlist somewhere. And I will, of course, be live right here on February 27th, Pokemon Day, because they're gonna no doubt do a presentation showing off what is coming this year, and most likely Gen 10. Will it look as good as this game? We'll have to wait and see.